March 11, 2011. A 9.0 earthquake devastates Japan. Nearly 20,000 dead. Fukushima melts down. One of history's worst disasters. But 12 years earlier, a manga artist published a book with 4 words on the cover. Great Disaster, March 2011. How did she know? And why did she disappear the moment it was published? This is the buried truth of Ryo Tatsuki, the woman who drew the future and then vanished into silence. Ryo Tatsuki was born December 2, 1954, in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan. As a child, she was unremarkable. She liked drawing. She liked singing. Nothing about her suggested she would one day predict catastrophes that hadn't happened yet. In 1975, at age 21, she debuted as a manga artist. She illustrated stories. She built a modest career. She lived quietly in Yokohama. For years, her life followed a predictable rhythm until the night of November 24, 1976. That night, she had a dream. In it, she saw the lead singer of the rock band Queen, Freddie Mercury, suddenly die. She woke up, wrote it in her diary, sketched what she'd seen, and went back to sleep. She thought nothing of it, just a strange dream, a fleeting image. 15 years later, on November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury died of AIDS-related pneumonia. The date matched exactly. Not just the year, not just the month, the exact day she had dreamed it, 15 years prior. Ryo Tatsuki realized something impossible had happened, but she didn't tell anyone. She kept working, she kept drawing, and the dreams didn't stop. In 1992, she dreamed of a woman's face. She heard a voice say the name Diana. She wrote in her diary, "Diana? Died?" She sketched the woman's portrait and dated the entry August 31, 1992. 5 years later, on August 31, 1997, Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. Again, the date was exact. By now, Tatsuki knew these weren't ordinary dreams. She started keeping a more detailed dream diary, recording every vision she had between 3 and 5 a.m., the hours when her premonitions arrived. She described them as unnervingly vivid, like watching a film play inside her mind. In 1985, her mother gave her a notebook. She began documenting everything. Then came January 2, 1995. That morning, Tatsuki wrote in her diary, "The earth cracks in Kobe, 15 days or 15 years later." 15 days later, January 17, 1995, the Great Henshin earthquake struck Kobe, her hometown. Magnitude 6.9, over 6,000 people killed. 45,000 left homeless. Buildings collapsed. Highways crumbled. It was Japan's deadliest earthquake in over 70 years. According to reports, 20 people who had learned of Tatsuki's prediction evacuated Kobe before the quake hit. They believed her, and they survived. By the mid-1990s, Tatsuki had experienced severe writer's block. Her manga career was stalling, but the dreams kept coming. Darker, more specific, more terrifying. She realized she had seen things that most people never would, and in 1999, she made a decision. She would publish one final book, a collection of her most disturbing premonitions. She would call it Watashi ga Meramerai, The Future I Saw. On July 1, 1999, the book was released, and then Ryo Tatsuki disappeared. The Future I Saw was not a typical manga. It wasn't a story. It was a diary, illustrated, dated, and disturbingly precise. Each page contained a dream Tatsuki had experienced between 1985 and 1999. Some were symbolic, others were literal. All of them felt wrong. The book included her prediction of Freddie Mercury's death, Princess Diana's crash, the Kobe earthquake. But there was one entry that nobody paid attention to, when the book first came out. On the cover, in bold text, Tatsuki had written, "Great disaster, year 2011, month 3, that is, March." She had also included a sketch of a massive tsunami. In her diary entry, dated March 11, 1996, she wrote, "A catastrophe somewhere in eastern Japan in March 2011. She had dreamed it 15 years before it happened. But in 1999, nobody cared." The book sold poorly. Tatsuki retired from manga immediately after its publication, citing a dream she had in 1995 where she attended her own funeral, which she interpreted as the end of her professional career. She walked away from public life. She stopped giving interviews. She disappeared into silence. For over a decade, the book remained forgotten, out of print, obscure, a curiosity sold in used bookstores. And then March 11, 2011 arrived. A 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Tōhoku in eastern Japan. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan's history. The seafloor shifted. Tsunamis up to 40 meters high slammed into coastal cities. Nearly 20,000 people died. Hundreds of thousands lost their homes. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant suffered a catastrophic meltdown, triggering the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. The world watched in horror. And then someone remembered the book. Readers began posting online. They shared images of Tatsuki's 1999 manga. The cover, the date, the prediction. Great disaster, March 2011. It was there, printed 12 years before the earthquake happened. Exact date, exact month, exact region. Suddenly, the future I saw became a cultural phenomenon. It was dubbed the Phantom Prophetic Manga. People wanted to know, who is Ryo Tatsuki? Is she still alive? What else did she predict? But Tatsuki remained silent. She had no social media, no public appearances, no interviews. She had walked away, and she wasn't coming back. Or so it seemed. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the future I saw resurfaced again. Readers noticed another entry in Tatsuki's dream diary. In 1995, she had written, "In 25 years, an unknown virus will come in 2020. It will disappear after peaking in April and appear again 10 years later." COVID-19 emerged in late 2019 and spread globally in 2020. While it didn't peak exactly in April, the prediction was close enough to reignite public fascination. By now, Tatsuki's reputation had grown beyond Japan. She was being compared to Baba Vanga, the Bulgarian mystic known for predicting major world events. Publishers saw an opportunity. They approached Tatsuki about reprinting the book. She agreed, but on one condition. She wanted to add something. In October 2021, a new edition of The Future I Saw was published. It was called the Complete Edition, and it contained a chilling postscript. On July 5, 2021, at exactly 4:18 a.m., Ryo Tatsuki had another dream. It was a dream she had experienced before, back in 1981, and again in 1999. But this time, it was clearer, more detailed, more terrifying. She saw the ocean boiling. She saw bubbles rising from the seafloor between Japan and the Philippines. She saw two giant dragons converging on the center of the disturbance, a symbol she couldn't explain. And then she saw it, a massive tsunami, 3 times higher than the 2011 disaster. Waves 30 meters tall, flooding more than a third of Japan. Cities swallowed, millions displaced. Unimaginable devastation. And she wrote on the new cover, "The real disaster will come in July 2025. The book was published. It became an instant bestseller. By May 2025, it was the #1 book in Japan. Over 900,000 copies sold. And then the panic began. In early 2025, word of Tatsuki's prediction spread across East Asia. Social media exploded with videos, theories, and warnings. TikTok users shared clips of her manga. News outlets picked up the story. People began asking, "Is this real? Should we cancel our trips to Japan?" The answer, for many, was yes. Airlines reported massive drops in bookings. Hong Kong saw a 30% decline in travel to Japan. Some flights from Hong Kong to Japan were cut by 3 to 4 per week. Travel agencies in Thailand, Vietnam, Taiwan, and China reported booking declines as high as 80%. Entire tour groups canceled. Hotels sat empty. One travel agent in Hong Kong said his Japan-related business had been cut in half. Another resident said he was delaying his summer trip to September just to be safe. The economic impact was staggering. Japan's tourism industry, which had seen record highs in April 2025, suddenly faced a crisis. And all because of a manga artist who had drawn a dream. The Japanese government tried to intervene. The Japan Meteorological Agency issued statements saying there was no scientific basis for predicting earthquakes by date. Cabinet officials posted on social media that with current scientific knowledge, it is difficult to predict an earthquake by specifying its date, time, and location. Seismologists were dismissive. They called it mass hysteria, a hoax, coincidence. But the people didn't listen. They remembered 2011. They remembered the cover of the book. They remembered that Tatsuki had been right before. And in June 2025, as July approached, the anxiety only grew. Then came July 5th, 2025, 4:18 a.m. Nothing happened. Japan woke up. The sun rose. The ocean was calm. No earthquake. No tsunami. No disaster. On Chinese social media platform Sina Weibo, the phrase "nothing happened in Japan" became the #1 trending topic. People celebrated. Relief flooded social media. Tatsuki's publisher released a statement on her behalf. "I am not a prophet," but the story didn't end there. On July 30th, 2025, to 25 days after the predicted date, a massive earthquake struck off the coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Magnitude 8.7. Tsunami warnings were issued across the Pacific. Japan's northern island of Hokkaido was evacuated. Waves hit the Fukushima region. Nearly 2 million people were displaced as a precaution. No one died, but the timing was eerie. And people began to wonder, was Tatsuki close? Was she just off by a few weeks? Or was this all just coincidence? So who is Ryo Tatsuki, really? She's 71 years old now. She lives quietly in Yokohama. She rarely gives interviews. She doesn't appear on television. She's not on social media in any public way. After publishing The Future I Saw in 1999, she effectively vanished from the manga world. She retired. She stepped back. And for over 2 decades, she remained silent. Even when her book resurfaced in 2011, she stayed hidden. Even when the world started calling her a prophet, she refused the title. In the rare statements she has made through her publisher, she's been humble, cautious, and somewhat uncertain. She uses words like maybe, perhaps, and I don't know. She's not trying to be a mystic. She's not building a cult. She's not selling miracle cures or making bold proclamations. She's just drawing what she sees. And that's what makes her story so unsettling. Let's talk about the predictions that came true. Freddie Mercury's death. Dreamed November 24th, 1976. He died November 24th, 1991. Exact date, 15 years later. Princess Diana's death. Dreamed August 31st, 1992. She died August 31st, 1997. Exact date, 5 years later. Kobe earthquake. Dreamed January 2nd, 1995. It struck January 17th, 1995, 15 days later. Tōhoku earthquake and tsunami. Dreamed March 11th, 1996. It struck March 11th, 2011. Exact date, 15 years later. COVID-19 pandemic. Dreamed in 1995. She wrote, Around 2020, an unknown virus will appear. COVID emerged in late 2019 and spread in 2020. Tatsuki claims she has recorded 15 major premonitions in her lifetime. According to her followers, 13 of them have come true. That's an 87% accuracy rate. Critics will argue that these are cherry-picked, that the predictions are vague enough to fit multiple events, that humans have a cognitive bias toward pattern recognition, that Freddie Mercury was known for living dangerously, that Japan sits on the ring of fire and earthquakes are inevitable, that a virus emerging around 2020 is broad enough to be meaningless. And maybe they're right, but the dates are hard to dismiss. March 11th, 2011. Exact. November 24th, 1991. Exact. August 31st, 1997. Exact. That's not vague. That's specific. That's documented. That's published in a book years before the events occurred. So either Ryo Tatsuki is one of the most statistically improbable coincidences in modern history, or something else is happening. Tatsuki herself has offered little explanation. She says the dreams come to her between 3 and 5 a.m. She says they feel different from normal dreams, like watching a film. She says she doesn't control them. She doesn't seek them. They just happen. She's also said that her predictions follow a 15-year cycle. If an event doesn't happen when she predicts it, it may occur 15 years later, or 30 years later, or 45 years later. It's a pattern she's observed in her own experiences. When asked about July 2025, she has been careful. She didn't say a disaster would definitely happen. She said she had a dream. She said it felt urgent. She said she wanted people to be prepared, not afraid, but prepared. Like carrying an umbrella in case of rain. After July 5th passed without incident, she issued a statement through her publisher. Don't be overly swayed by my dreams. But the damage or awareness was already done. Here's the part most people don't talk about. Ryo Tatsuki's story isn't just about predictions. It's about how we respond to the unknown. It's about belief, fear, and the power of narrative in an age of information overload. Think about what happened in 2025. A manga, a graphic novel, caused millions of people to cancel trips. It caused airlines to cut flights. It caused a measurable economic impact on one of the world's largest economies. All because of a dream that a 71-year-old woman had in 2021. That's extraordinary. Not because the prediction came true, it didn't, but because people believed it might. Why? Because Ryo Tatsuki had been right before. Because the 2011 earthquake was still fresh in collective memory. Because when you live in a country where the ground can literally open up beneath you at any moment, you pay attention to warnings, even warnings that come from dreams. Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It experiences thousands of earthquakes every year. Most are minor. Some are catastrophic. Scientists have warned that a massive earthquake, the Big One, could strike the Nankai Trough at any time. The Japanese government estimates an 80% probability of a magnitude 8 or higher quake in the next 30 years. So when someone like Tatsuki, who predicted 2011, says something terrible might happen in July 2025, people listen. Not because they're irrational, but because they've lived through it before. They know the cost of ignoring warnings. And that's the buried truth here. Ryo Tatsuki didn't cause panic. She revealed how fragile our sense of security really is. Let's also talk about what didn't happen. Tatsuki has made predictions that haven't come true, at least not yet. She predicted a major eruption of Mount Fuji in August 2006. It didn't happen. She predicted a Nankai Trough earthquake in 2026. We're still waiting. Some critics point to an impersonator who falsely claimed to be Tatsuki in the early 2010s and made fake predictions, which further muddied the waters. This impersonator claimed Tatsuki had predicted events she never actually mentioned. So yes, Tatsuki has been wrong, or at least her timeline has been off. But even accounting for misses, her hit rate is unnervingly high. And here's the question that haunts researchers, skeptics, and believers alike. If even one of her predictions was genuinely precognitive, if she truly saw the future, even once, what does that mean? There are a few theories. Theory 1. Coincidence. This is the skeptic's position. Tatsuki made dozens of predictions over decades. Some were bound to align with real events purely by chance. Freddie Mercury's death? He was a rock star in the 1980s, not exactly a low-risk lifestyle. Princess Diana? Tatsuki only wrote Diana? Died? With no cause or context. Readers filled in the blanks after the fact. The Tōhoku earthquake? Japan has major earthquakes regularly. Predicting one in March 2011 is less impressive when you consider she initially dreamed it in 1996. That's a 15-year window. Critics argue that Tatsuki's vague language and long timelines make her predictions unfalsifiable. If something doesn't happen, it's just delayed by another 15 years. If something happens that's sort of close, believers retroactively fit it to the prediction. Theory 2. Pattern recognition and intuition. Some researchers suggest Tatsuki may have an unusually developed sense of pattern recognition. She lived through the Kobe earthquake. She understands Japan's seismic risk. Perhaps her subconscious mind was processing geological and cultural data, manifesting as dreams that were actually informed intuitions. This doesn't explain the exact dates, but it could explain why she gravitates towards certain timeframes and locations. Theory 3. Genuine precognition. This is the position of her believers. They argue that some people have abilities we don't yet understand, that time may not be as linear as we think, that consciousness may be able to access information outside the usual constraints of cause and effect. There's no scientific framework for this, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Science doesn't know everything, and throughout history, phenomena once dismissed as supernatural were later explained by physics, biology, and neuroscience. Maybe Ryo Tatsuki is an outlier, a statistical anomaly, a person whose brain operates in a way we can't yet measure or replicate. Or maybe she's just very, very lucky. Here's what we know for certain. Ryo Tatsuki published a book in 1999 that predicted a disaster in March 2011. That disaster happened. The date was exact. The location was exact. The scale was catastrophic. She retired immediately after publishing that book. She didn't seek fame. She didn't capitalize on her predictions. She disappeared. When the world rediscovered her in 2011, she remained silent. When publishers asked her to re-release the book in 2021, she agreed, but only to add a warning about 2025. And when that prediction didn't come true, she quietly said, "I am not a prophet." She's not building a movement. She's not selling anything. She's not claiming to have supernatural powers. She's just there, living quietly, drawing dreams, disappearing into silence. And that's what makes her story so compelling. Because if she were a fraud, she'd be everywhere. If she were a charlatan, she'd be selling courses, giving TED Talks, writing memoirs, but she's not. She's a woman who saw something she couldn't explain, wrote it down, and walked away. The real question isn't whether Ryo Tatsuki can see the future. The real question is, what do we do when faced with uncertainty? Do we dismiss warnings because they don't fit our understanding of reality? Do we panic and cancel our lives based on unverified predictions? Or do we find a middle ground where we prepare, stay informed, and remain humble about what we don't know? Tatsuki once said, "If a major earthquake occurs, even if you are living in a place that was never hit by a tsunami back to your grandparents' generation, evacuate at once." That's not prophecy. That's practical advice. That's the wisdom of someone who has seen disaster and wants others to survive. Maybe that's the buried truth we're all searching for. Not that Ryo Tatsuki can predict the future, but that she reminds us the future is unpredictable. that the ground beneath us isn't as solid as we think, that life can change in an instant, and that the best thing we can do is pay attention, prepare, and be kind to each other while we're here. Ryo Tatsuki is still alive. She's still living in Yokohama. She's still quiet. She's still drawing. And somewhere in a notebook, she's still recording her dreams. We just don't know what they say yet.